man will face court this month over a dangerous driving stunt through Townsville's popular nightclub precinct on Friday night. A local DJ filmed the act on his iPhone. It's already been shared by more than 1,000 viewers online.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And thanks to some enterprising citizen journalism, Channel 7 in Townsville recently ran a story the arrest of a hoon driver caught burning up the nightclub strip on a Friday night. The report came with spectacular footage of a souped-up black Commodore and a warning from police about his highly dangerous and irresponsible behaviour.
The 31-year-old driver tore up Flinders Street like it was a racetrack. Hundreds of Friday night revellers watched the dangerous joyride.
The behaviour from that driver was disgraceful, it was atrocious, it was clearly endangered all those persons in that area at that time.
The driver's donuts were enough to set his tyres alight.
7 reported the driver had mounted the footpath and been arrested and charged with dangerous driving. And while the news didn't name him, it did give people a clue to his identity, because the green Holden HQ used in 7's studio backdrop was instantly recognised by angry muscle car enthusiasts. And as they pointed out on 7's local Facebook page, its owner had nothing to do with the crime.
Shame you totally bollocksed up using a vehicle owned by a major legal event promoter.
Michael Gup Gilbert is anything but a hoon, so why should he or any other innocent party be linked to a headline of an illegal act?
Channel 7's green machine certainly looks remarkably like the $200,000 show car driven by Gilbert and seen on his Facebook page. And it's familiar to fans of Gilbert's Power Cruise Promotions, which organises safe, legal and very popular cruising car events at racetracks round Australia. But Channel 7 quickly told its critics it was not his car. It had used a stock photograph, and any link to Gilbert
was coincidental and unintentional.
Not surprisingly, this did not satisfy Power Cruise and its fans. The day broadcast, the company's Gareth Ball spoke to Channel 7 and then followed up with an email to supervising producer Sally Young, claiming,
Over 250,000 people have seen the issue on our Facebook page. We have had over 700 comments, hundreds of personal messages, and the comments you put onto your Townsville Facebook page received over 100 comments, most negative.
Ball told 7 that its use of Gilbert's green Holden in a story about breaking the law was defamatory and harmful to business. And he went on to say,
We would also like an apology, a genuine apology.
But it was to no avail. All he got back was a letter from 7's lawyers saying, in summary,
Our client did not use your boss's promotional vehicle. The graphic did not identify any owner. There has been no defamation. Our client will not be providing any apology.
Gilbert and Power Cruise are not going to sue, but they still feel aggrieved. And while Channel 7 has now issued an on-air clarification, it has not said sorry or admitted it was wrong. So perhaps they should look at this picture of Gilbert's green car in Automobile magazine, taken at a Power Cruise event. We'll put it alongside the Channel 7 image, and you can judge whether they're the same. The black and white seats in the back appear to be identical. The smoke around the rear wheel also matches exactly. The key difference is the driver in 7's picture is hidden by a big cloud of smoke. Perhaps added by Channel 7's graphics department? So, come on fellas, I think it's time to fess up and give thanks that you haven't been sued. Because using stock images or library footage to illustrate stories about criminal acts can be very expensive. And we do mean expensive.
9 takes bikie bride for a ride and pays $1.6 million.
Back in 1995, Nine's A Current Affair did a story on criminal bikie gangs. And being a bit short of pictures, it decided to use some footage of bikers on Harley-Davidsons, shot for Nine's Weddings programme 4 months earlier, even though the network had undertaken not to reuse it, and even though the riders were not gang members. 9 famously ended up paying $1.6 million in damages to bride Kelly Jackson, husband Glenn, and 7 friends.
The court heard that after the program, people had asked Mrs. Jackson about drugs. Colleagues walked away from her table in the canteen. A stranger said, "Your drugs kill children," and her son was not allowed to play with the next children. A jury found they had been defamed, the show implying they were willing to rape and murder and were involved in arms and drug trafficking.
So, with all that in mind, perhaps the big photo agency Getty Images would be wise to label their stock photos a bit more carefully in future. Because the people in the picture we're about to show you aren't bikie gang members, even though several media outlets like ABC Radio National, Business Insider and 5AA in Adelaide recently suggested they are.
States begin fresh bikie crackdowns. Getty Images.
Queensland Police told to get tough on bikies or quit. Getty Images.
A federal task force on bikies. Is it enough? Getty Images.
All those stories were published last month and relate to tough new bikie laws in Queensland. But the picture was taken 4 years ago, and it's in Sydney. And the three people are actually journalists from Two Wheels and Live to Ride magazines. Editor Miles Rangeley and business manager Brett Cross and associate editor Greg Risk. They're standing outside the clubhouse of the Rebels motorcycle gang, but they're there for a media conference. And while Getty's caption on its iStock image makes the context clear, it describes the men in the photo as
rival bikie gang members.
When the three journalists saw their picture being used to suggest they were gang members, they complained. And the ABC and Business Insider quickly took down the images. The ABC then told them,
"Let me first apologise to you and the others in the picture. We will be conducting a review into how this happened. While the image is sourced from Getty Images, that is no excuse for us to use it incorrectly."
All in all, a copybook response, and probably enough to keep the lawyers at bay. Now, if you've been following the bikie gang story, you'll know that the Queensland government's crackdown ran into trouble last week, when a senior Supreme Court judge laid into the state premier for trying to jawbone the courts into refusing bikies bail.
Justice George Freiberg accuses Premier Campbell Newman of bullying judiciary over bikie bail laws.
In response, Campbell Newman's spin merchants were reported to be briefing the media against the judge for being soft on pedophiles. The Courier Mail's Robin Ironside tweeted,
Premier's media people handing out story from 2005 about Justice Freiberg releasing a child sex predator.
Now, as we started looking into this story, we found a tweet, not from the Premier's office, linking to a profile of Justice Freiberg on the popular and well-known Zoom Info website, describing his honour as
corrupt parasite, Supreme Court of Queensland Judge Henry George Freiberg.
Zoom Info's profile, which comes near the top of a Google search for the judge's full name, accuses Freiberg of fraud and protecting armed robbers, and gives his employment history as
corrupt government judge.
Now, we should say straight up that these are false allegations and they don't come from the Premier's office. They've been trawled up from a website called The Hague Report, which attacks a host of Queensland judges, policemen, prosecutors, priests and government officials, accusing them of all sorts of lurid things. One look at The Hague Report and you can see it's crazy stuff. Wild colours and even wilder accusations. Yet Zoom Info faithfully republishes the website's attacks on at least 10 people. So why is this happening? Zoom Info is a big American website which claims to be relied on by some of the world's leading companies like Google, Microsoft and Dow Jones. It boasts profiles on 65 million people and 6 million businesses and says its information is drawn from
credible web sources.
And that this information is being
constantly verified.
But The Hague Report is certainly not credible. And its so-called information on Freiberg and all these other Queensland figures has clearly never been verified, even though some of it has been up on Zoom Info for at least 3 years. And why is this? Because no one at Zoom Info actually looks at this stuff, which is dredged up by computers and algorithms that clearly are not as smart as people claim. Similar search engines trawl up stuff for Google, which actually offers The Hague Report right near the top if you search Justice Freiberg's full name. So, are Google and Zoom Info concerned about this? Well, not so as you'd notice. They refuse to comment on specific cases or reveal whether anyone's asked them to take down the offensive material. But Google's online policies and principles suggest they believe it's not their problem.
Google search results are a reflection of the content publicly available on the web. If you want to remove something from the web, you should contact the webmaster of the site the content is posted on and ask him or her to make a change.
So, why hasn't the Hague Report itself been shut down? It's been defaming police, prosecutors and judges since 2006, but it's survived all efforts to take it offline. The man behind the website is a disabled pensioner from Brisbane who says he suffered brain damage from a head injury back in 1967. The man has been fighting several battles in the Queensland courts over his house and other matters, and is now listed as a vexatious litigant. He told MediaWatch,
"Nobody has ever tried to get me for defamation. It's all true, so they can't."
Oh yeah? But police have twice seized the man's computer and camera, he says, and have done their best to get material removed from his website, as well as to stop him publishing his attacks.
The police have been trying for ages to get my website down. The site host in the USA says they can't. They'd need a US court order to do that.
Back in 2009, the police also charged the man with 4 counts of using the internet to menace and harass. But the case quickly ran into trouble.
A Brisbane man accused of online harassment of Queensland public figures and organisations may not be fit to be tried by a criminal court, a magistrate has said. A committal hearing involving 4 witnesses began in late June, but on the 3rd day of his case, the man, who is representing himself, failed to turn up to court.
Those 4 criminal charges are still before a magistrate, and the case is due to come back to court in 11 days' time. Perhaps there will soon be a result. But the people whom the Hague Report is defaming are still puzzled as to what they can do to protect their reputations, particularly when Google and ZoomInfo are helping to spread its slurs to the rest of the world. And here, the good news is they may be helped by 2 landmark legal decisions from 2012.
A Melbourne man who won a defamation case against search engine giant Google has been awarded $200,000 in damages. When Mr. Takulia's name was typed into Google's image search, photos had appeared of him alongside gangland figure Tony Mockbell. Google search results also linked to a page on a now defunct website, Melbourne Crime, which had published photos labelled with his name.
In 2 separate legal actions last year, Melbourne's Michael Takulia won a total of $425,000 in damages from Google and Yahoo for republishing false allegations about him from other websites, much as Google and ZoomInfo have done with the Hague Report. An essential element in his legal victory was that both companies had ignored his request to take down offending material. Now, we don't know whether any targets of the Hague Report have asked Google and ZoomInfo to block defamatory material about them. But if they haven't, we suggest they do so immediately. And if either Google or ZoomInfo fails to respond, they may well find a big payday awaits. And as always, you can find out more about all of these stories on our website, and you can contact me on Twitter. But for now, that's all from us. Until next week, goodbye.